It's a good place to end there, but not the programme. Summer's all but over, and so is the festival season. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Henry Fisher. He's from an organisation which has been at a number of festivals, allowing people to test their illegal drugs. Have a look at this.
Wednesday the 7th of August 2013. I gave her a hug before she left because I always do that with my daughters, just in case I never see you again. How could I know that this time that was real?
5 years ago at the Boomtown Festival near Winchester, Wendy Teasdale's 18-year-old daughter Eleanor took a line of ketamine powder after already drinking a couple of cans of beer. She fell asleep in her tent and never woke up.
I don't think she had any idea really what she was doing. The ketamine was very pure, and although it's not usual that Eleanor died after such a relatively low amount, the fact is it's a cocktail, it's a Russian roulette, it's a risk, it's a gamble. Her friend woke up, Ellie was cold, and well, I think she'd gone then. Here she is with her sister Belinda in Finland. All of us have been really gone through a process through coming back here, and Boomtown have really helped with that. If it helps people realise that it's not recreation, this is dicing with your life, then it's worth it.
Boomtown's policy when it comes to drugs is the same as it would be anywhere else in the country, any other event, any other nightclub, any other place that is illegal, don't bring them in. However, we really acknowledge that despite our very best efforts, drugs will still get into the festival. Acknowledging that and understanding the dangers that can come with drug use within an event environment, we really wanted to just put everything in place that we possibly could to be able to safeguard people so that they really understand what they're putting in their bodies and the harms that can come from that.
For the second year running, Boomtown has brought in a drug testing service called The Loop, a service Wendy feels could have saved her daughter's life.
A service user will come in, they put a small amount of a sample in a bag.
Anyone who wants to get their drugs tested can do so anonymously. In this tent, people drop off samples of MDMA, cocaine, ketamine and other substances to find out exactly what it contains and how strong it is.
So we have this sample came in earlier. This was one that we tested. It ended up being plaster of Paris. And the service user has received that result back.
What did they think it was?
They believed it was MDMA or an ecstasy tablet. It contains nothing, just plaster of Paris. Some enterprising fraudster has obviously knocked these up, and I would say rather obviously in their kitchen.
After the samples are tested, people are then offered practical advice on the drugs they plan to take.
There's no trading standards for drugs. Nobody is making sure that every ecstasy tablet contains the same thing. So while there is a level of, holy crap, I was thinking about taking that, there is also another side where they're like, well, I'm kind of not surprised. If they say to us outright, should I take this drug? Our answer is always going to be, realistically, no. The safest thing for you to do is not take any drugs at all. We're here because we recognise that that's not realistic.
The Loop are only allowed on sites with the agreement of the local council and police force. As far as the Home Office is concerned, it says possession of these drugs is a criminal offence and there is no safe way to take them. But they say allowing drug testing is a matter for chief constables. Do you think there's a risk that something like that legitimises people taking drugs and people selling drugs in places like this?
That's hard to say. It's happening anyway.
It's happening. You may as well make it safe. You can't buy the pills off a dealer and go, so how should I take these? What is the responsible way for me to enjoy myself?
I know that had the Loop been here when Eleanor was here, she would have gone there. She was curious, she was always asking questions. I still can't believe that she would actually not have researched ketamine on the internet. I do not think that it encourages people to take their drugs into festivals. They're going to do it anyway. This stuff needs to be brought into the light.
Tragic story there. With us here in the studio, Henry Fisher from The Loop, the organisation that we saw there in the film. Does what you're doing normalise the use and taking of drugs?
No, we're very clear actually that when we deliver our service that we don't condone, we neither condone nor condemn drug use. The point is it's happening anyway on site. and if it's going to happen, you can either leave it as it is or try and reduce the harms that are related to it, and that's what we're trying to do.
Does it set a dangerous precedent?
I don't think so, because I think young people will take drugs. Young people have always taken drugs, and I think that the main risk to taking drugs is not knowing what you're taking. I was thinking about, the culture at festivals now and whether it differs from when I was growing up. And there was a very significant campaign that I remember when I was a teenager, which happened after Leah Betts died when she took an ecstasy pill. And at the time, that campaign was as powerful as the safe sex and using condoms message for people of my generation. I think we're probably the similar age. And I remember thinking, my God, you could take an ecstasy pill and die. And my parents, I've got a father who's a GP and my stepmother's a pharmacist. So they were very much of the opinion, we don't want you smoking, drinking or doing drugs, but out of the three of those, please don't do drugs because you don't know what's in them. To have the opportunity to have Henry's a chemist, to tell people if they're going to take drugs, what they're taking. This stuff, it's cut with rat poison and all sorts.
Is it a green light, though, former Home Secretary? Amber, I mean, where do you stand?
Well, we looked at this when I was Home Secretary, and we were aware of, actually, quite frankly, the good work that the Loop does. 11 people have died in festivals in the past 2 years, and the work that they do, I think it is important. And as was said on the VT, I'd much rather people didn't take drugs. Drugs are illegal, they shouldn't be taking them. But where there are festivals and there are going to be young people taking them, as a mother, I have to say I like the idea of people being able to test to see what they're taking is what they think it is. And I understand, because I spoke to some, shall we say, nameless young people before coming on this, about it, that some people do say, and what do you mean? It's 20% concrete? I'm not going to eat that after all. People find out some really nasty truths about drugs, and it does make some of them think again. So overall, I think it's a good thing to have, and I'm pleased that that service is offered. Would you
like to see it rolled out, Emily?
I think let's see what happens with these pilots, and let's see how well they work. I'm very ambivalent about this. I mean, I don't like the idea of these tests being available in clubs and pubs. I think that we should have zero tolerance in those. And I've recently had with one of the clubs in my constituency, we have had to make sure that everyone is being searched. Obviously, it's really difficult at a festival, which is so huge and much more difficult to control. So I get that, but I also do think that the only safe way to take drugs is not to take drugs.
People do take drugs because they smoke and they drink alcohol. And what's really sad about this is it shows what's actually in the drugs that young people are taking.
But there is the additional point. It's not just the danger of taking the drugs, but it is also how vulnerable you are when you have taken drink or drugs and you're completely out of it. I think there's that point as well, and that worries me. I mean, that worries me.
Doesn't the Loop offer a medical facility, though, at festivals?
This is part of the aspect of why we deliver this service, because a lot of people don't know the risks that are related. They also don't know how to actually look after their friends in the environment, whether that's in a club or at a festival, and actually having a sober, friendly chat with a healthcare professional. And 9 out of 10 of the people that come to use our service have never spoken to a healthcare professional about their drug use before. So they come in, they hear for the first time ever that actually it is much more risky than they thought it was, that mixing the drugs that they were planning on mixing is far more dangerous than they thought it was, and that they should be looking after their friends if they are actually still considering taking drugs. Then it makes it so much safer for everyone involved.
I was going to say, and if someone has taken something and they are completely out of control, they can come to you as well, and you can give them help as to how it is that they then look after themselves.
So we don't provide the welfare service itself at festivals, but we will direct people to welfare if we see them in trouble.
We don't want people taking drugs, obviously, but given that they do, some young people, I don't think it's a classic case of we shouldn't make the perfect the enemy of the good. There's got to be some support there for people so that they can have a bit more information about what they're doing, and hopefully that will put them off.
I think the other thing which is really interesting is that this panel that you have in front of you, we're all mothers, and the last thing we want is the idea of our children being put at risk. I mean, I think that's the thing, and how do we best protect them?
No one wants to think of their children using drugs and going to a festival and using drugs for the first time. But the people that come and use our service, 30% of them are under 21. So they're the people that don't know what they're doing. It may well be their first time. They have very little knowledge, and actually a significant amount of the people that come and use our service come having taken something and had a reaction that they don't expect, and they then want to know why that is, what it is that they've taken, and they can then deal with that more sensibly.
Amber, you said this was something that you looked at and discussed when you were Home Secretary. Let's talk a little bit about your departure from that position earlier in the year in April. Tell us about it. Why did you resign?